to another episode of Commentators Corner. My name is Tyler Reedy. That's Brendan Preisman on my right, and we had quite the week of sports with Friday night, the Creighton Prep game against Millard West, senior night, an incredible comeback for the Junior Jays. They were down 26-0, came all the way back to win it 29-26. We had the great fortune of being able to call it. That was just an incredible game.
We can never call an easy one.
Yeah, I know. It's always when we're on it.
They've always what drama continued over the weekend as well. Football, down goes Oklahoma. Texas almost went down, but stayed undefeated. And then Sunday, NFL also had a bunch of crazy games. The Falcons continue to falcon.
Yep.
And as if that wasn't enough, we've got NHL, MLB, and NBA playoffs to cover. So we got.
Yeah, we've got quite the slate for today between college sports, high school sports, and pro sports. So we'll talk about the big one first with Creighton Prep, the football team. Obviously, the huge comeback Friday night. They entered the game ranked number 8th, facing 6th ranked Millard West, and game got off to a slow start, scoreless until about 2 minutes remaining in the first half, and then Millard West was able to string some big plays together, offense, defense, and special teams to get out to a 12-0 lead at the half, and then they built on it 26-0 at the end of the third quarter despite losing their starting quarterback, Jacob Jones, who played a great game. But then as soon as that fourth quarter started, Creighton Prep flipped a switch, and I mean, did they ever flip a switch? 29 unanswered points, 2 rushing touchdowns, one from Jack Stessman, one from Max Sanders, passing touchdown from Sam Meisenberg to A.J. Rollins, the Husker commit at tight end, and then a 61-yard fumble return for a touchdown by junior Ryan Carney, and then a game-sealing interception from Alex Bullock, who just continues to ball out for the Junior Jays. What an incredible fourth quarter it was.
Yeah, and this is just based on the eye test. I don't have the entire play-by-play stats from that game, but I'm pretty sure that Prep allowed like one play of more than 5 yards that entire fourth quarter on defense. It was that one big run by Millard West right before the fumble. It was just stop, punt. And the offense played, I personally think, the best we've seen them play all year. Running and passing game worked. Meisenberg had to go out for a couple plays, but Parker Lisey converted a big fourth down on, I believe, the second time but Alex Bullock. So the team in the fourth quarter really looked like a championship contender.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've got another tough test in front of them this week with 10th ranked North Platte. The Bulldogs were able to jump into the top 10 for Class A after a 56-14 win last week at Lincoln Northeast. And this North Platte team, they're 4-0, haven't played any top 10 teams yet this year, but they're especially dangerous with their run game. They've leaned on it completely and have found great success to start the season.
They kind of remind me of one of the service academy teams like Army, Navy, with how little they pass the ball. I remember I think it was in the prep recap actually saying who they were going to play next week. Oh, yeah, by the way, pass in last week's win against Lincoln Northeast. So they're definitely a run-heavy team. They've already got 3 different running backs over 200 yards, including one of their seniors, Cody Wright, already at 561 yards throughout the year. And last week you mentioned the impressive win over Lincoln Northeast, 553 rushing yards.
Yeah, they've got 1,510 rushing yards total this season. You mentioned over 500 last week. The big story at running back is Cody Wright. He's the lead running back, even though they've got 12 different players that have carried the football this year. But Wright with 560 rushing yards, that's 140 per game. In all 4 games to start the season, he has over 100 rushing yards. So Wright is going to be a big challenge for Creighton Prep. They've done better at stopping the run game this year, particularly against running backs. The area they've struggled with guys like Cole Payton and Jacob Jones has been stopping runs from the quarterback position, but that's not as big of a threat this week with Lincoln Northeast. It's more of a running back thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the issue North Platte is an option team. It's just going to be stopping the option and stuff like that, because we saw Prep kind of have feast or famine with that against Millard West. In the third quarter, it didn't look like they knew what they were doing out there. And in the fourth quarter, it looked like they knew the plays that were being called in the Millard West. So if Prep can bring that fourth quarter mentality, like playing with nothing to lose, playing with their backs against the wall, and go up tempo, then they should perform pretty well in this game. And I think I heard from somewhere that they're going to bring back what they did against a Millard West in the fourth quarter. Don't let their opponent get a chance to catch their breath when Prep's on offense. Just keep going.
Yeah, that's exactly what they've done the last two games in the fourth quarter. The Lincoln Southeast game 2 weeks ago, Prep trailed 21-0, but then they just went into that air attack mode where they passed the ball on just about every play, and that's basically what last week's game against Millard West turned into eventually after a couple of rushing touchdowns. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you about is we've talked about with the first few episodes how much Prep's run game has struggled to start the year, and part of that could be attributed to how much Creighton Prep has been down in a couple of their games. But last week, the run game really exploded to get that comeback going. So how much are you buying into that run game after last week?
Well, I think it's looking more like a West Coast approach or style to the game. They're using the pass to set up the run. Like, I'm pretty sure both the Stessman and Sanders touchdown runs came on plays where there were 4 wideouts, or 3 wideouts in A.J. Rollins. So I think mix of those, because you and I both talked about Prep struggling to do that in the past. If they can find a good mix of pass and run and not just go run, pass every time, if they can mix it up and go pass, run, pass, or pass, run, then the run game should start finding a lot of open holes, especially Jack Stessman. He got to showcase his speed a couple of times. Could get many more chances to do that.
Yeah, should be an exciting game. Another top 10 matchup for Creighton Prep. They've already played 3 top 10 teams to start the year. This will be their 4th. The game is in North Platte, 3.5 hours from Omaha, so of course we won't be there to call it. Student Council, however, will be hosting yet another watch party. That'll be in the Sullivan Center Commons once again. So another top 10 matchup, another exciting game coming up. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, you got professional sports really hitting their stride here in late September. We crowned a Stanley Cup champion in the NHL on Monday night with the Tampa Bay Lightning defeating the Dallas Stars in the series 4-2. And it's sweet redemption for the Lightning after last year. In 2018-2019, they were the best regular season team in the NHL, but then they faced the Columbus Blue Jackets and got swept in the first round. So there was a lot to prove for Tampa Bay, and they end up going the distance, and you could really tell the whole way through that they were playing with a chip on their shoulder. They had a lot of energy, and they were able to overcome the Dallas Stars in the Stanley Cup Finals. And then meanwhile, Major League Baseball is starting its postseason with 16 teams for the first time ever. On the American League side, Toronto Blue Jays and Tampa Bay Rays, Cleveland Indians facing the New York Yankees, a playoff matchup we saw a few years ago. Minnesota Twins and Houston Astros, Oakland Athletics, Chicago White Sox. That's a series I'm really excited for. 2 teams that can really hit the ball well. And then on the National League side, Los Angeles Dodgers, Milwaukee Brewers, an NLCS rematch from 2 years ago. Then the San Diego Padres, St. Louis Cardinals. Padres making their first playoff appearance in what feels like forever, but they're an exciting young team. And then the Miami Marlins and the Chicago Cubs, a rematch of that NLCS from, I think it was 2003, when Steve Bartman interfered with the pop-up into foul territory, and the Marlins, instead of recording an out on that play, were able to come back and win that game and the series. So it should be interesting. Marlins, not a team that anybody expected to make the playoffs this year, but with a 16-team format in a struggling National League East, here they are. And then finally the Atlanta Braves and the Cincinnati Reds. So Major League Baseball about to get things going, and NHL is in the books. Meanwhile, NBA starting the finals this week.
Yeah, it was really difficult to foresee getting the two superstars of the Utah Jazz, Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, both tested positive for COVID-19. There were a lot of videos making the rounds in the days after that showed Gobert like touching microphones in press rooms after games were over, and that was very fun to laugh at and then cry at as an NBA fan. But luckily, we're here. The bubble worked extremely well. No positive tests for anybody in the bubble, and we've got a finals that really nobody expected. One side of it is, oh yeah, of course that's going to happen. But the other side, very interesting, the Los Angeles Lakers versus the Miami Heat. Both teams having won championships already this decade, but fell after a superstar left. For the Lakers, they fell off after Kobe Bryant's Achilles tear and eventual retirement. Hadn't made the playoffs in 6 years until last year, when the arrival of LeBron James and this past offseason of Anthony Davis transformed them from an also-ran into a contender. And on the Eastern Conference side, it's the Miami Heat, one of LeBron's former team, appearances and 2 titles. After he left, they kind of fell off. They weren't helped by Chris Bosh getting blood clots in his lungs and having to retire prematurely. But they're back without tanking like the Philadelphia 76ers did. And they've got a lot of really solid guys on their team. I'm really looking forward to this series. This is going to be a very so far. The Lakers have played the Heat twice this year. Lakers 2-0 in that series, winning the points battle by 104-95 in total. And both these teams are very, very clutch. The Lakers to this point still have not lost a game this season when they're leading after the third quarter. And the Heat are 8-1. But the Lakers would seem to have the edge with not only 2-0 record against the Heat, but the 7-1 record against the Heat's division. And both teams really haven't even struggled at all to get here in the playoffs. The Lakers dropped the first game to Damian Lillard and the Portland Trail Blazers, and that sparked a lot of hot takes like, oh, LeBron's just going to LA to make movies. Blazers won the next 4. And then they dropped the first game to the Rockets in the second round, and that also sparked a lot of hot takes. Oh, look at that. LeBron went to LA to make movies. And the Lakers won the next 4. And then meeting a surprising Nuggets team in the conference finals that had come back from down 3-1, not once but twice, including against my beloved Clippers, which is why we haven't covered the NBA in recent weeks. But Lakers took a 3-1 lead, and a lot of jokes started filtering around. Oh, here come the Nuggets. And then the Lakers won Game 5 to end the series. And the Heat, meanwhile, have looked really good. I mentioned, I believe in one of our earliest podcasts, that the Heat could beat the Bucks and make the conference finals. But I didn't expect them to make it this round 1. Beat the Bucks and league MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo in round 2 in 5 games. And then beat the Boston Celtics, who have made the conference finals now 3 times in the past 4 years, in 6 games. So both teams 12-3 in the playoffs, and both teams structured very differently. The Lakers built around of Anthony Davis and LeBron James, both of whom are averaging over 26 points so far in these playoffs. And the Heat, in the regular season, top 7 scorers all average 10 points or more. And they've been really built up around a 3-headed monster in this playoffs. Jimmy Butler, Dragic leading the team in points, Adebayo in rebounds and assists, while Butler is the team's emotional leader. But the Heat are kind of like the Hydra of Greek mythology. Cut off one head, 2 more shall take its place. You know, if you manage to stop Jimmy Butler, then their shooters like Duncan Robinson or Kendrick Nunn might get going. If you manage to stop Adebayo, then one of their get going. So I think this series is going to be a close, exciting series. I've managed to find 3 X factors that I think are going to be important. The first one is the Lakers supporting cast. After LeBron and Anthony Davis, the next man up on the Lakers is Kyle Kuzma, who so far this playoffs is averaging 10.5 points per. So the Lakers are definitely going to need another guy to step up, I think, especially if AD manages to get neutralized by Adebayo. So will that be somebody like Dwight Howard? Will it be Rajon Rondo? I don't know, but they're probably going to need the next man up. Second thing is shutting down LeBron, which the league has been asking itself basically since LeBron so far in the playoffs, 26.7 points, 10.3 rebounds, 8.9 assists. And in game 5 against the Nuggets, he just took over, basically did whatever he wanted against them in what seemed like an easy win. So the question for the Heat is going to be, who can stop LeBron? And obviously you can't completely stop LeBron ever. People have tried, and it's never worked. But if you can maybe hold LeBron to averages of like 25 and 5, then your team's got a puncher's chance in the series. And the third one is the three-point battle. Another stat for the Lakers, I believe they've won every game in which they've shot 35% or higher from three-point, have a lot of good three-point shooters. So the question is going to be which team is going to come out on top shooting from distance. And I think that's going to be one of the things that decide the series. My pick, though, I don't really think I can pick against LeBron this year. I think he just is going to want it more than everybody else will.
Yeah, and think back to what LeBron was able to do with the awful supporting cast he had in Cleveland during those later years, such as 2017, 2018, when Kyrie Irving
was... That 2018 run.
Yeah, 2018. He scored, I think it was
50. That 2018 run,
yeah,
greatest I've ever seen live.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a Michael Jordan fan, please don't come at me. I've never seen any of Jordan's playoff runs live because I was born in the 2000s. But LeBron really carried his team in 2018. He was basically their entire offense against the Pacers, the Celtics, and the Raptors. And would have stolen Game 1 from the Warriors, I believe, if J.R. Smith had after forgetting the score. But now, what's nice for LeBron is he's got a guy like Anthony Davis, so he can rest up for a little bit and save his energy for the fourth quarter. So I think that's going to be huge for the Lakers this series.
Yeah, definitely hard to bet against them. So NBA Finals about to get going this week. Finally, football continues to roll through the first few weeks. NFL, Thursday Night Football in Week 3, we had the Miami Dolphins downing the Jacksonville Jaguars 31-13, kind of putting out the fire that was going with Minshew Mania. Gardner Minshew, the Jaguars quarterback, got off to a really hot start, but the Dolphins shut that down a bit. And then the injury-riddled San Francisco 49ers beat the New York Giants 36-9. Cincinnati Bengals and Philadelphia Eagles tie at 23. That's the first tie of the 2020 season. Then the New England Patriots take care of the hot-starting Las Vegas Raiders 36-20. The Atlanta Falcons, they did it again. They continue to drink their diet choke as they blow another big lead, this time a 26-10 advantage over the Bears. They give up 20 unanswered, and Chicago wins it 30-26 with Nick Foles at quarterback. Yeah.
In other news around the league, the Tennessee Titans, who might have their next game in jeopardy after a few positive tests, beat the Vikings 31-30. Stephen Gostkowski, 6 field goals, career high for him. And should he be cut, so that's always good to see for a kicker. Pittsburgh moves to 3-0, defeating the Texans, who are 0-3, but it's a good 0-3 because they play the Chiefs, Ravens, and Steelers. So if you're a Texans fan, be worried, but not too worried. Tom Brady looked like Tom Brady again in a win over the injury-riddled Broncos. Somehow manages to beat Arizona on a game-winning field goal from Matt Prater. Kyler Murray, 3 interceptions, so
fell back to earth.
Cardinals may be falling back to earth. Russell Wilson continues to have his MVP candidacy grow. 5 touchdowns against the Cowboys, despite DK Metcalf and him 6. Seahawks moved to 3-0. Another MVP quarterback with his team moving to 3-0 is Aaron Rodgers, threw for 3 touchdowns against the Saints. And right now it seems like a 2-man race between Rodgers and Wilson for MVP.
Yep, and speaking of 2-horse races, on Monday Night Football we had what many were considering an AFC Championship preview, what many were considering a potential MVP quarterback preview, a potential 2 best teams in the NFL preview between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens. And the Chiefs with Super Bowl MVP quarterback Patrick Mahomes went into Baltimore, and their reigning MVP quarterback Lamar Jackson and Kansas City beat Baltimore 34-20, but it was a much wider margin between those two teams than the score would indicate. Mahomes with 5 total touchdowns. Lamar Jackson didn't even exceed 100 passing yards. So the Chiefs really proving that they're on another level, and Baltimore now 0-3 against Kansas City with Lamar Jackson at the starting quarterback. He has clearly been their kryptonite. Meanwhile, Patrick Mahomes just continues to ball out against whoever he faces.
Mm-hmm. And there are some people comparing him to the Michael Jordan of the NFL. I remember last year against the Bears, he threw a touchdown and then counted to 10 on his fingers, presumably a reference to the fact that he fell to number 10 in the 2018 draft and Mitch Trubisky went number 2, quarterback for the Chicago Bears. And then last night, after throwing one of his touchdowns, he appeared to count to 4, which could be a reference to his placement in the NFL Top 100. So it seems like he's holding a lot of grudges, and it seems like he's able to take those out. Other NFL news, the Bills almost did a Falcons. They blew a 28-3 lead, but thanks to an interference call on the Rams, they were able to hold on for a 35-32 win. Josh Allen also inserting his name into the MVP race. 311 yards, 4 touchdowns for him. The Browns winning record for the first time since 2014. Congratulations to them. Beat the Washington football team 34-20. Baker Mayfield looked good. The run game might be able to sneak into a wild card spot. And then the New York Jets, busy fighting with the Giants for title of worst team in the league, lose 36-7 to the Colts. Rough year for the Jets. Adam Gase is probably on a burning seat right now. And then in one of the final games of the week, Panthers defeat the Los Angeles Chargers 21-16. First victory for the Panthers this year. 3 turnovers forced by the Panthers defense.
Yep, a lot to talk about in the NFL. Week 4 coming up with the start of October this week, and then meanwhile college football had quite the weekend on Saturday.
Ooh.
With number 3 Oklahoma falling to a non-ranked conference opponent in Kansas State for the 2nd season in a row. So Kansas State just continues to have OU's number. They do it again. Then meanwhile, LSU, defending national champion, 6th-ranked team in the country, they lose at home as well to an unranked conference opponent in Mississippi State, as a former Stanford quarterback and transfer KJ Costello has a monster game at starting quarterback for Mississippi State. And then your Texas Longhorns, ranked number 8, I believe, over the weekend, they trailed 56-41 to unranked Texas Tech late in the 4th quarter, but they were able to pull off the comeback, get the game to overtime, and win it 63-56. So it was quite the remarkable weekend in college football.
And that doesn't even begin to cover the SEC besides the LSU game. Texas A&M nearly losing to Vanderbilt. They pull out a narrow win, 17-12. Texas is better than Texas A&M. And that's all I'm going to say on the matter. Tennessee, Miami blows out Florida State, and Auburn pulls away from Kentucky late. So we've got a lot of good teams in the SEC. Florida's Kyle Trask looked really, really good against Ole Miss, threw 6 touchdowns himself. Alabama looks like their usual selves. UC and Georgia was able to pull away from Arkansas after a 5-7 halftime deficit. So it's going to be interesting in the SEC.
Yep, it's going to be a very entertaining month going forward, with October just just around the corner here. It's going to be a very, very entertaining month in sports, just like September was, just like August was. It's just going to continue to go on. It's been quite the couple of months, and it's only going to get better from here on out. Yeah, so that'll do it for the 5th episode of Commentators Corner. Thank you for joining us. Brennan, you got any last things to say on just prep after last week going into this week?
They just can't let the comeback go to their heads. You have to use the comeback not as really something to help you coast, not as a prop to help you up in practice. Like, oh, we came back from 26 down, we don't have to practice hard, but use it as kind of a motive, as something to strive to do again, and just stop the run.
Yep. Well, it'll be fun to see how it plays out in North Platte on Friday night as the Junior Jays look to continue to build on their impressive victory over Millard West. So that's it. Episode number 5 is done, and we'll see you next week.